Welcome to 15 Minute Bites, the podcast where tech conversations come in small portions and always with a great recipe on the side. I'm your host, Marty Gensius, and each week we spend about 15 minutes with someone I admire from the tech world. This guy is definitely it. We talk briefly about what they're building, teaching, exploring right now, and then we switch gears to something that's just as important to a lot of tech folk, food. And each week, a guest brings a favorite recipe, often one that they've actually cooked. And there's sometimes great stories about it. So without further ado, I'm going to just introduce Eric Perry. Eric, why don't you fill listeners and viewers in a little bit about who you are and what kind of tech stuff you're into to start with?
Yeah, so Marty, you and I have been recording for quite some time, different podcasts and things. We've known each other for, I don't know, probably
Hmm.
what, 10 years-ish or so now, maybe a
Yeah,
little longer.
longer, I think.
Um, since our work with ACEs. So I teach primarily online. I'm a counselor educator, um, program director. So half of my job now is administration and leadership, and the other half is teaching. But I've been a techie for a long time, really into especially things that make my life and my job easier,
Hmm.
or allow me to do it better. So I'm constantly looking at process. I still teach. I teach and I practice. So I'm a clinician. I offer telehealth. So I'm always looking for ways to make life easier because there's just not enough hours in the day. Um, so that's a big part of what like my tech interests are, like what makes life easier and better.
So life hacking, in a way, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
more tech hacking in the sense of you're using technology to life hack.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And anything in particular you're finding now that you're doing?
I'm annoyed by administration. So I'm
Okay.
annoyed by all the menial tasks that we have to do. And I think there's some great tools out there for folks that can help. One that I've been using, and actually I've been using it for well over a year and just now got more organized and learned a little bit more about the features. So it's called Text Blaze,
Hmm.
Blaze. Um, it essentially helps you create snippets that are like the commonly used things that can go into documents. You can also create form templates, which I find to be really helpful for those emails that I send all the time, but also
Yep.
need a little bit of personalization to them. So recently I got organized between my teaching and like common feedback that I use in papers for certain courses. Um, I have snippets in there for clinical notes that I use that are just kind of like my standard stuff that I then edit and personalize. I also have it for, again, those emails that I tend to send a lot of, the same kind of questions or, part of administration. I'll send out reminders about when grades are due and making sure that folks are being responsive to students and, just general reminders that I don't want to type again.
Yeah.
Um, so it captures all of that, and it's kind of like if you've ever used macros back in the day. You have a usually starting with a backslash and then a couple of letters or numbers. Entering that in enters the whole snippet. Um, so you can save yourself a lot of time, save your fingers a lot of typing, and I feel like I move through things much faster and with less frustration because there's less repetitiveness now to what I'm doing. Um, so it's one of those tools that I feel like is cheap and can make a huge difference in your workflow.
Yeah, I have been using, and before we recorded, you were thanking me for introducing you to this app that I didn't introduce you to. I, you, you must have found it
Yeah.
some other way, but I use Text Expander, and there are a
Hmm.
couple of these. I'll put some links in the show notes along with the recipe to make sure we get to yours, the one that I use, and then I think there's a third one that I played around with too. that does that. And my only problem with the app is that I don't put enough templates in.
Mm.
I'm always running into things that I have to write multiple times. And it's like, this should be a snippet. This should be a preformed letter with fields that I can fill in just by typing in a macro wherever I am with it. So it's just a little bit. It's more the end user problem than it is a problem with the app. So let's talk about your recipe, because when I first uh, pitched you the show, and we've been together doing Tech Savvy Professor for years now, and you said, "Oh, that's cool," and then you told this story. And why don't you tell a little of the story, and then we'll get to the recipe.
Yeah, so my family is primarily from West Virginia, from Appalachia. Um, and, had always, a lot of our recipes, a lot of the things that we've cooked are kind of based on what can you do with the least amount of ingredients, the cheapest. Um, Coal mining family, and they own, anybody's familiar with the term, a holler, which is essentially a hill that most of the family lives on. And every year for Christmas, this is one of the things that would get made, and I would run around the house eating, and still really enjoy making and eating now. Maybe overly simplistic for folks, but it's something that holds a lot of meaning for me because it was one of the things that we could reasonably afford, and I always felt like it was a treat.
Hmm. And what is it called?
So it's peanut butter potato candy. Don't judge too harshly at first. Um, it really is three ingredients. So potato, peanut butter, and powdered sugar. Um, the potato really is just to hold things together. So to make this, it's really easy. Get the potato. About an egg-sized potato is usually good for this. You need about 4 to 6 cups of powdered sugar and about 3/4 to a cup of creamy peanut butter. I've actually tried this with crunchy peanut butter. It doesn't work out. Um, so make sure it's creamy peanut butter. You cook the potato until it's very soft, right? So you want it fully boiled, peeled, and then mash it so it's completely smooth. You're going to add the powdered sugar in uh, a cup at a time and start mixing that together. Um, you really want a thick dough that's no longer sticky, and that well, it'll start to form. It'll get less sticky as you add that powdered sugar to it, and you'll roll it. You can dust the counter with powdered sugar once you have it kind of rolled out into a rectangle. It says about a 1/4 inch thick, but you can go a little thicker if you want to. You spread the peanut butter evenly over the top of that, and then you're going to just roll that together. Um, so you'll kind of roll it, and I like to use like uh, like saran wrap or kind of plastic, um, and then chill it in the fridge is fine. And then once it's chilled and you pull it out, usually, and it says 30 to 60 minutes, I usually give it overnight. You'll slice it into those pinwheel slices. A little bit goes a long way, so it's really, really sweet. It's mostly peanut butter and powdered sugar, um, but they're really, really good if you're a fan of, especially if you're a fan of peanut butter.
So what's the diameter of the slice?
There are varying opinions on this,
Okay.
right? Because I would go a little thicker, maybe about a half to a three
So
quarters of an inch.
so to increase the potato powdered sugar ratio is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like I said, a little bit goes a long way. It's a
Yeah.
lot of powdered sugar.
So in your world, again, what I'm trying to imagine this rolling up, and
Hmm.
so I'm trying to get a fix on how big these slices are going to be. Are they like pinwheel size cookie slices in
Yeah,
terms
I
of
would.
diameter?
Yeah, like bottom of a Coke can,
Okay,
the whole roll.
really?
It'll be about that big. Yeah, depending on how big you want to make it. This one is a little smaller. I would say a little less than that. Um, but the ones we made were a little bit larger.
So you've got this rectangle, and it's what do you can you imagine what the dimensions of that rectangle is?
I'm really bad at this. My
Oh, okay.
spatial isn't great, but I would say probably like, I don't know, 6 inches by a foot or so.
Okay. Well, that comes from an egg-sized potato.
You don't need much potato,
Really?
right? It's
Wow.
just a binding agent. You're not even going to taste the potato or know that it's in there.
Wow. That's pretty cool. That is pretty
But
cool.
they are delicious. I know some people that make them with some different ingredients. You can add vanilla if you want
Hmm.
to. I know people that make them actually with jelly too, so it's more like a peanut butter and jelly potato
Right.
candy. Or you can use like an almond filling, or we made them one time with hazelnut spread
Hmm.
because the kids were obsessed with that at one point, right? Nutella was
Oh,
everything.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Life goes on with Nutella.
yeah.
Um, I just it is pretty interesting, and you call it a candy, not like a cookie. Okay.
Because you don't bake it. There's no.
Yeah.
It's just in the fridge and out. Raw ingredients. Other than the potato, you're really not cooking anything.
How do people react to this? Outsiders, outside of your family.
Yeah, this is pretty funny. My wife is from a very traditional Italian family. Her father is second generation Italian, um, and we've brought this to Italian Christmas. Right? It doesn't really fit in.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember one time bringing it, and more of the family being at that Christmas than usual. And one of her uncles yelling from the other room, "Who made this?" Like, but he's got like five on his plate, and he's drinking coffee, and he's eating these. And by the end of the night, he's like vibrating. I was like, "Yeah, you just ate like a cup of powdered sugar sitting at the table." Yeah.
So good reactions. Now, did you say, did you tell people that this is basically potato and peanut butter and a bunch of sugar, or that was kind of the surprise?
Yeah, no, nobody tends to ask. You know what I mean? So it actually comes out to be, because of the potato, pretty smooth. I don't think you realize it's not as sweet as you would think it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it,
it was it was
and
shocking for some.
I get that you if you add some powdered sugar, then it turns into sticky. But if you
Mm-hmm.
add more powdered sugar, eventually it gets into kind of a dough-like consistency that is not sticky. I'm going through this renaissance of cooking, and this show actually has influenced that. We had a show on ice cream and making ice cream, one of our previous episodes, and so of course I went out and got an ice cream maker. The week before, I went out and got a bread maker because I felt like we were just throwing away half loaves of bread. And then, I have some relatives coming in, and they're from Illinois, and I'm like, I want to make a Chicago deep dish pizza. So last week, I made my first deep dish pizza, and I can see myself making this peanut butter potato candy. I'd have to not tell my wife what it is because she would just freak out. But
This this is not a
I
health
think
food.
I kind of want to try that. I've got a week. They're coming in at the end of next week to figure this one out. So thanks for bringing this to 15-minute bites. Is there any closing things that you want to say, or ways in which you can share this, or share how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, no, I think if anybody wants to reach out, podtalk.net's a great place to start.
Thank you.
Um, so promo that first. But if you do have questions or you want a different version of the recipe or questions about TextBlaze or anything like that, counselingtechconsult@gmail.com is my email, or just reach out through the podtalk.net.
Okay. Our email is the podtalknetwork@gmail.com. Thank you for sharing this recipe with us and being a part of this show and the other shows that we do, Tech Savvy Professor and such. And it's good this dish has really got me challenged. I have got to try this and finally make a potato taste good. That would be my response to it. So until next time, keep experimenting, keep cooking, and remember, good ideas often start at the table.